Welcome back, and in this video I'm going to show you an alternative way of creating some super stylish table arrangements but without using flower foam. I'm going to be using a selection of jam jars and all the odds and ends left over from my other arrangements. This is a great way of using up the stems that you had to cut away when you made your hand-tied bouquet, so don't forget to save them. Jam jars are a great way of adding a bit of glitz and glamour to your table arrangements. They'll catch the sunlight and the candlelight and look great in a village hall or a marquee. Probably the hardest part of this project is starting your collection of glass dishes, whether you're going to go for a random mix or whether you want your containers to be the same. These are nightlight holders, a vintage jam pot, a highball tumbler glass, good old jam jars, a vintage Kilner jar. I'm not entirely sure whether that's a liqueur glass or a candlestick holder, or even a vase. And I think this is probably a drinks bottle. And you probably recognise this as an Orangina bottle. I've also got a couple of these dishes I thought would be great for floating flower heads in. You'll need to be filling your containers with water, and I find the easiest way to do that is to use a funnel. And I've got a cloth just to mop up the dribbles. And I'm going to fill up my jars using a jug of water. Having filled my jars up, it's now time to get creative. Recut the stems and add the flowers in. Some of the jars you may only want to add one flower, but perhaps some of the larger jars you might want to make mini arrangements. So trim the flowers down and just pop them into the vases. At the moment I'm just going to go randomly. You can always adjust things later on. You might want one short flower and one longer one. We'll keep them all small. Don't forget a bit of greenery too. Make sure the stems that you put into your vases or your jars are clean so they don't have any leaves on the side. Cut this asparagus down. Bunch it together in my hand and trim off the leaves that will be in water. Little side shoots there. Scabious. More of the Orangium. And just keep going. You might want to put some candles in some of the glassware. They don't all have to be filled with flowers. Broken the stem there on this white spray, so I'll trim that off. And just have fun with it. These are great arrangements to make because you can do whatever you like. No two vases need to look the same, because once you place them all together on your tables, they will look like a combined whole rather than individual vases. I've got a dahlia casualty there and a very short stem, but that would be perfect for floating in my dish there. Offcuts the fennel, so I'll recut the stems and dot them throughout the jars. The skill of arranging flowers in jam jars doesn't so much come with the placing of the flowers into your jars, but how you're going to display them on your table. You'll notice as I unload my jars from my tray, I've got a variety of shapes, sizes and textures to my vases and jars. You'll need to think about whether you want to place your jars in a long line, whether you want to have them in clusters of 2, 3, 4s or 5s, or whether you want to have them individually placed next to each table setting. You need to decide whether you're only going to have flowers in the jars or whether you want to add candles too. You could add nightlight holders into some of the glass jars or have church pillar candles resting direct onto your tabletop. Or candlesticks as well. Glass ones would look fantastic. I'm going to arrange my jars and vases down the centre of my table, imagining that I'm laying them on a trestle table in a marquee. Or perhaps long tables in the village hall, clad with crisp white tablecloths. I'm going to start by placing my largest jar into the centre of the table. That's my vintage Kilner jar. And then I build up a few jars on one side of that and mirror the placements as best as I can on the other side. And I'm gradually getting my jars smaller and smaller. So next to that vintage Kilner jar, I've got a pair either side of my tall, smooth, highball tumbler glasses. And then I come down a little bit. I've got the low pressed glass container, the little bud vase and the rounded jar that looks a bit like a clear glass Marmite jar. You might not get your placement right first time, but you've got the opportunity to move things around until you get a pleasing collection. Each of your guests will probably see 2 or 3 jars in front of them, but the beauty of this is that you see the whole flowers as a collection and a linear group of glittering glassware and beautiful fresh flowers. You need to imagine your glass jars undulating across your tables. There'll be high points and low points where your eye is drawn up and down in a pleasing rhythm that takes in the beauty of each of the individual flowers. There's another video clip at the end of this section that shows me placing my jars out on a sideboard at home so you can see more clearly what I did against the clear background of my walls. You'll see how I start off with my largest jar and then work from side to side, creating interest in terms of height and putting different textured vases next to each other and making sure I'm not repeating the same flower colours too often. Notice how I separate out the purples, which are the more dramatic, eye-catching flowers. I hope this video has given you plenty of inspiration. I left all my glass jars plain, but you might want to decorate yours. Perhaps twist some garden twine around the neck of your jam jars or add some ribbon or lace to match in with the theme of the colours of your wedding. If you have any questions or queries, you're always welcome to ask them in my free Facebook group, Flowers Start World, or tag me on Instagram. I'm at flowerstart with an underscore at the end and use the hashtag flowerstart. That's all from me for now, and I'll catch up with you in the next video.